I think in conquest specifically, I think a number of countries, including Singapore and I believe South Korea, maybe Japan as well, I'm not sure, but several countries did participate in that as well. And I don't know, I mean, I think that the sort of the military approach, I think, for Mongolia is on these smaller units that, checkpoints, perimeters. I think it was the International Court of Justice perimeter in Sierra Leone. But I think the remarkable thing is that these are relatively new assignments for Mongolia, and yet Mongolia is doing very, very well. And like I said, getting real international praise for these peacekeeping kinds of assignments. You can go through each one of those histories. Sierra Leone with the Civil War, of course, Darfur, people know about that. Even Kosovo, they had some liaison officers in Kosovo and Europe. So I think they make a big contribution, and I think probably would also say they benefit from those kinds of assignments. You mentioned our military relationship. Our military relationship in recent years has supported, along with other countries, the kind of training that makes those international deployments possible.
So is that part of the UN peacekeeping process?
Well, a lot of them, and again, UN peacekeeping is truly international, so you'll find different countries participate, but a lot of those assignments have been through the UN peacekeeping assignments.
So hopefully it's all military standards keep coming.
Well, I think it's what it's partly about is that sort of international standard. In fact, I mentioned that MASH unit going to Darfur. It was a good day because they had just passed the UN inspection to permit them to deploy. They'll be looking after other UN soldiers in Darfur specifically, and so they have to get to that standard. So yes, I think it's been a positive relationship.
I have seen a very interesting report about a physical requirement for military, different ranks in the U.S. One is to be fit to a certain level. And unfortunately in Mongolia, many people were not going to military. Now we have a law that can pay off. And we have under 1 year service. As a result, personally to me, looks like our soldiers become smaller or thinner, are not fit. And our high-ranking officers are becoming bigger, fat. So do you know anything about this requirement?
I don't know the figures on that one. In our country, we of course have an all-volunteer army and a professional army, and I think in some ways that's the direction that Mongolia is moving as well. It could be that some of those international assignments are exciting enough for a younger generation to want to participate. I'll do a personal story because I mentioned my son is in college. In our system, we call it ROTC, Reserve Officer Training Corps, that even as a college, you're not going to military college, you're going to regular college, but you're training to be commissioned as an officer
Everybody.
Afterwards. Well, no, not everybody. And in fact, the story I'm going to say, my son who's in college is going to be an Air Force officer when he finishes. Mm-hmm. And so he has...
Along with his own profession, he's going to be also
he'll have I don't think he thinks of a career, to be honest, but he has a 4-year obligation. And he goes to summer camp. He just had his what we call boot camp, his field training, which was very, very rigorous. And I think he's in good shape. He passed and did fine. He actually, I guess to be honest, is the only student in his college that in the Air Force ROTC. But still, I think it's an indication that for us it is an all-volunteer military, and it's choices that people make. It's one that he made on his own. He's 19 years old. He can make those choices. But it's been interesting, and from my perspective as a parent, a very honorable thing for him to do, to feel like he'll give 4 years of service to his country.
You said U.S. Army is a professional army.
Yes.
Professional in the sense, you mean that whoever is in the army, they are paid for, right?
No. What I mean is it's not a what we say a draft, not a conscript army.
I see.
It's a career choice that people make.
Okay, either you go to army or not go.
It's a personal choice. It's a personal choice, and of course you have to meet a certain standard as well. But it's a personal choice that you make, and it's not that you're obliged to be drafted in to serve for a couple of years, as has been the case in some years in our history. For the past 35 years, we've had an all-volunteer army.
Well, speaking about U.S. Army, you are now withdrawing from Iraq. I will remember when the troops came first to Iraq, and that bombing and the history with Saddam Hussein, etc. So after how many years you are withdrawing?
I was in Mongolia at the time when that happened, and I believe it was 2002, 2003, 6 or 7 years ago. You're correct, though, that the Iraqi freedom, in terms of the combat troops, has run its course and that they've left. And although American soldiers are still there in a training capacity, actually even a year ago they left the cities. So the Iraqi army has been, as we say, stepping up to the plate and coming forward, and that's certainly the case right now. But yes, that Iraqi freedom has ended, and the combat part of that engagement is complete.
Do you think the mission is complete?
Well, I think there's different chapters in a continuing story, if you will, and that chapter is finished. I think there's, like I said, the training personnel is still there. There's still soldiers there, but beyond that, in recent years or recent months, even in both Iraq and Afghanistan, for that matter, there's been a strengthening of the civilian presence, and that's certainly the case in Iraq as well.
You are also still in Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
And what is the strategy in Afghanistan?
Well, the plan that's been announced is to begin the drawdown next summer, 2011. The fact is, right now, actually, there's increasing over the past weeks. There's been an increase in that presence, and yes, they are trying to, to take on the Taliban, but at the same time, to provide the capacity and the wherewithal for the Afghan army to be successful too. So it's in some sense, both aspects of it. There's that military dimension, but there's also the training dimension, and in some sense, making the Afghan army to be capable and do what it needs to do in its own country.
And Afghan military was supported by aircrafts from Kyrgyzstan, where you have a base.
Well, I think it's been. I mean, the whole of Afghanistan, what's happening there is an international effort involving many countries, and I think that Manas Air Base in Kyrgyzstan, which is still part of the route. I mean, it's basically when the equipment, the supplies come in different ways. Some of them come through Pakistan through trucks. Some of them come through the air route, if you will, and Manas is part of that. That's correct.
Well, I'm asking all the questions. See, stability factor in the region all around the world is a key. Mm-hmm. But still the big countries, I mean, Mongolia, do you know that Mongolia is the most independent country? Do you know why?
Why is that?
Because nobody depends on us.
Yeah.
No, my point is, see, the world, we need more global peace, etc. And, this issue in the Middle East. Then suddenly you sell, $600 million plane and other aircrafts to Saudi Arabia. The other day contract is signed. And on one hand we need the peace. The other hand we keep selling weapons. You sell, Russians sell. How does it work?
Well, I mean, I think security is important, and in different ways these are decided. This is a very recent sale. To be honest, I don't want to pretend to be an expert on it. I want to say, though, in a broader sense, I think Mongolia does set a good example. You mentioned Central Asia specifically. People's definitions vary, but you could say that Central Asia stretches from, Mongolia through the 5 stans and on into Afghanistan. And certainly the bookends, if you will, Afghanistan at one end and Mongolia at the other. Mongolia sets a wonderful example of a country that faces challenges, but is independent and engages in a very positive way, and seems to be moving forward in a positive way as well. I think those challenges will always be there, but I think in a regional and indeed in a global sense, Mongolia certainly plays a positive role in the world.
Thank you. What do you think that Mongolians can improve dramatically in the sense that we could develop faster? In the general questions, we talked about the foreign investment part, you talked about governance, transparency. What other things, in your opinion, in your mind, right, from your observations, please share with us?
Yeah, again, Mongolia has to make all those decisions going forward. They're Mongolians to make. I think that, the Friends of Mongolia, and there's many around the world in many countries, can offer some of that international experience. I use the American expression in terms of the international experience, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And if it's good experience, if it's bad experience, you can still learn from it. And I think, I know that some Mongolian parliamentarians went to Botswana. I think they've been to Chile. I think they've been around the world. And I think that, Mongolians are aware that, countries make choices about their future, and they're really vital choices, because